The Uncharted Future, a collection of sci-fi visions by Rainer Yeh. This short story is called The Fifth Colony. It began with a vision. A thriving human presence on Mars, a new chapter for a species no longer bound to Earth. The first missions were bold, ambitious, displays of the ingenuity and will of a civilization that refused to accept its limits. But Mars is not a place that welcomes life. It is cold, dry, and hostile, with a thin atmosphere of carbon dioxide and a landscape that stretches barren for miles. The planet resists all efforts to make it a home, and the first human steps on its red soil were marked by failure. The first colony, called Eras-1, was launched in a blaze of optimism. A small crew of 6 astronauts set foot on Mars, carrying with them the hopes of billions. Their habitat was a marvel of engineering, a domed structure designed to withstand the planet's harsh conditions. Inside, life support systems filtered oxygen from the thin air, water was extracted from the soil, and greenhouses promised fresh food. For a few short months, the colony thrived. But then, the dust storms came. Martian dust, fine as talcum powder, seeped into every crevice, clogging air filters and jamming equipment. The solar panels, essential for power, were blanketed in red dust, cutting off energy to critical systems. Communication with Earth became sporadic, then ceased entirely. The crew fought to maintain the habitat, but the technology failed faster than they could repair it. Oxygen levels dropped, food supplies dwindled, and one by one, the crew members succumbed. Eras-1 was abandoned, a silent tomb on an unforgiving world. Undeterred, the space agencies of Earth tried again. Eras-2 launched with a larger crew, better technology, and renewed confidence. This time, the mission included a nuclear reactor for reliable power, buried beneath the Martian surface to protect it from the dust. The habitat was reinforced, the life support systems upgraded, and redundancy was built into every aspect of the design. For a time, it seemed that the lessons of the first failure had been learned. But Mars had other plans. Unknown to mission planners, a crack in the reactor's cooling system went undetected. Radiation levels inside the habitat began to rise, slowly at first, then rapidly. The crew, focused on their day-to-day survival tasks, did not notice until it was too late. Radiation sickness set in. Nausea, fatigue, and eventually death. The reactors that were supposed to be their salvation had become their undoing. Eras-2 was lost, its crew entombed alongside their predecessors. Eras-3 followed, this time with robotic assistance to help manage the colony. Drones scouted ahead, building structures before humans arrived. The habitat was moved underground, shielded from the surface hazards. They built tunnels, carved deep into the regolith, and filled them with life. But this time, it was biology that betrayed them. A bacteria strain, brought inadvertently from Earth, mutated in the Martian environment, thriving in the underground water systems. The pathogen spread through the water supply, infecting the crew and leading to a rapid outbreak that Earth's antibiotics could not treat. The crew fell ill one by one, the infection tearing through their bodies, unstoppable. The colony was evacuated, but few made it home. Eras-4 was launched with private funding. Collaborative effort between multiple space agencies and corporations eager to stake their claim on the Red Planet. They called it the New Hope mission, a last-ditch effort to turn Mars into humanity's second home. The habitat was a sprawling complex, featuring advanced life support, hydroponic gardens, and 3D printed walls that could self-repair. The mission was a spectacle, live-streamed to millions. But hope is not enough. On the way to Mars, a miscalculation in the trajectory sent the ship into a dangerous orbit. The crew corrected, but at the cost of fuel reserves critical for landing. The descent was rougher than planned, the landing craft skidding across the rocky surface, damaging crucial supplies. The habitat was set up, but supplies were scarce, and rationing became severe. 2 months in, a failure in the oxygen generation system triggered a cascade of technical problems. The atmosphere inside the habitat thinned, and carbon dioxide levels rose. The crew tried to fix it, but there were no spare parts, no margin for error. They suffocated before help could arrive. 4 attempts, 4 failures. Each time, lessons were learned, improvements were made, but Mars remained unyielding. Public interest waned, funding dried up, and for a time the dream of Mars was set aside, another chapter of human hubris consigned to history. But a few refused to let go. Engineers, scientists, dreamers, they kept working, refining, waiting for the right moment to try again. The fifth colony, known simply as Eras-5, launched amid cautious optimism. It was a multinational effort, funded not by governments or corporations alone, but by a coalition of nations, private entities, and individuals who believed in the vision of a multi-planetary species. Advances in technology had made the mission possible, but it was the failures of the past that guided its design. The Ares 5 habitat was modular. It was expandable and adaptable, designed to evolve with the needs of its inhabitants. Power came from a combination of nuclear fusion and solar energy, with redundancy built into every layer. Life support systems were over-engineered, each component with multiple backups. The habitat was buried deep in the Martian regolith, protected from radiation, dust, and the unrelenting cold. A network of autonomous drones constantly monitored conditions, repairing faults before they could become problems. Biological safety protocols were stringent. The colony was equipped with advanced microbiology labs to detect and neutralize pathogens. Water was treated with multi-stage purification systems, and strict quarantine measures were enforced to prevent contamination. Genomic scans of all crew members ensured no hidden infections or genetic susceptibilities would compromise the mission. The crew, carefully selected and rigorously trained, included engineers, scientists, medical professionals, and, for the first time, families. They were not just explorers. They were settlers, prepared to live out their lives on Mars if necessary. They were equipped with tools that could fabricate anything they needed from Martian resources. Air, water, building materials, even food. Hydroponic farms thrived beneath LED lights, providing fresh vegetables, while vats of algae produced oxygen and protein. But the real breakthrough came in the form of closed-loop ecosystems. Inspired by Earth's most resilient biospheres, Ares 5's habitat could recycle air, water, and waste in an almost perfect cycle. Microbes processed organic matter, plants regenerated oxygen, and every element of human life was part of a carefully balanced system designed to mimic Earth's own. For the first time, humanity had brought a self-sustaining pocket of Earth to another world. The first year on Mars was tense. Every system was tested, every procedure scrutinized. The crew faced equipment failures, minor medical emergencies, and the psychological strain of isolation. But each challenge was met and overcome. The systems held. The habitat thrived. They planted crops, harvested water from the soil, and for the first time, a human child was born on Mars. A symbol of a future that was finally within reach. Ares 5 succeeded where the others had failed, not because it was perfect, but because it was prepared to adapt. It was a living colony, designed to grow, evolve, and endure. Mars, once a graveyard of human ambition, had become a home. Looking back, the failures of the first 4 colonies were seen not as defeats but as necessary steps in a long journey. The 5th colony was built on the bones of those who had come before, on the knowledge gained at the highest cost. Today, the Martian cities stand as monuments to human persistence. Transparent domes glint under the pale sun, solar fields stretch across the plains, and the lights of thriving communities flicker in the dusty twilight. Trains glide silently along maglev tracks, carrying settlers between habitats, research stations, and the first mining operations. Children play in parks where trees, grown from Earth's seeds, reach for the thin Martian sky. Mars is not easy, it never will be, but it is possible. Mars may be harsh, but humanity is here to stay. The Red Planet is no longer a distant dream, it is a new beginning, a place where life, against all odds, has found a way.